listening to one of the Caseys over the weekend, and he was going through the stations, and he named one, and one of them was in Durham, and it was WSH. It was, must have been 20 Don Curtis iterations ago for something that he owned. I'd never heard of it. Okay,
that's funny.
Because this is, these shows are from, this is like from 1973 or something like that.
Of course. All right. We are live. It is time for you to share and time for me to share. And let's see.
All right. Hey.
All right, friend. Ready when you are.
Hey, hey, ho, ho. We can't do this podcast. I got to go. You see what I did there?
I see what you did there.
Okay. Too lazy to go in the other room and get the wireless.
Bastard.
Too lazy.
So you're going old school.
Yeah.
You look like a dork with your wired ass headphones. Oh, wait a minute. Hang on.
All right. Ready?
Ooh, I'm ready.
It is our first Brad and Britt cast for the week. We're glad you've joined us. Thank you so much. We're live in the 1:30 hour here in the Eastern timey zone here. You know what I want to do here? Can we go a little locally for the opener?
Why not?
Locally, yeah. A little regionally, I guess, too. This whole thing started last Thursday, and we didn't have time to get to it. We didn't talk about it. It was courtesy of a sports writer at the Richmond Times-Dispatch. His name is David Teal. He broke the story about the ACC for the billionth time since I've lived here, 35 years, saying, we're thinking about moving the headquarters of the Atlantic Coast Conference out of Greensboro somewhere else. We're thinking about it. We're like Jerome Powell. We're going to raise interest. Well, we can't tell you when. We're thinking about it, and we'll tell you when we start. And over and over again. So the story, takes on a life of its own, of course. And we've had this discussion and argument over and over again, but it's overlaid the growth of the ACC from just, what was it, originally 7 teams?
Right.
And most of them were in North Carolina. And then you had Georgia Tech, maybe South Carolina, I think was in.
And Clemson, yeah.
Yeah, Clemson. So it was, and so Greensboro, it was founded, it was 1954, I think, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
All these years. And, of course, now the ACC is this gigantic, from top to bottom of the East Coast, and Notre Dame and Syracuse. Okay, it's
Pittsburgh.
huge.
Yeah.
Right. And they've had the ACC basketball tournament in New York already. It's already been there. It's been in Washington already. It's been in Atlanta. And at the front of the line to get the headquarters, of course, is Charlotte. And they all can make good cases in that it's easier to fly there, more direct flights, bigger market, blah, 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 blah. And I get that. We understand that. We know what that means. But in terms of what it would mean to fans, it would mean nothing, right? It means absolutely nothing where your headquarters. It means nothing. Zero, zilch. And
where are the? I'm trying to figure where are the headquarters for the Pac-12? Where are the headquarters? I can't even think of where these are.
I looked up the Big Ten. Do you know where the Big Ten is? Rosemont, Illinois, near Chicago.
Okay, well, that makes sense.
And guess what? The league first met there in 1904, and they've never moved. Never moved. But then you could, they're close to Chicago, but geographically, that's fine. But I don't think even need to try to compare the ACC to everything else and leaving the headquarters in Greensboro. Because I think, the last time this really became a big thing, they hadn't built this giant aquatic center. There wasn't the Hall of Fame. Is there all that kind of stuff is in Greensboro now? It's all there. And, you and I, we're hardly what we would call traditionalists. Let's keep doing things the same way because that's the way we've always done things. Because we usually use that as an argument as to why something sucks, right?
Usually that's us. That's our MO, yeah.
Right. And there's a big, long Facebook thread about it that somebody put up there and back and forth. And my first thought was, it's kind of amazing that it lasted in Greensboro as long as it did. That's one way to look at it. It's amazing. And then I was thinking about, and this is just a half hour ago, I was thinking, wait a minute. In the world of COVID, what changed for workers? The answer is work from anywhere, doesn't matter where you are. Nobody cares. Right. So to me, that's a better argument for Greensboro now, because it isn't, who's flying here? Who needs to fly here at the drop of a hat and get a direct flight from Syracuse to Greensboro, which you can't, so you have to change. That is not a reason. That is a lame ass reason.
So right off the bat, you're admitting that our airport sucks, right? It's a substandard airport.
It's not that the airport sucks. There's nothing wrong with the airport. In fact, as you know, it's a lot more pleasant to fly.
A lot of people prefer it. As a smaller airport, you can get through it a lot easier. You can park a lot easier, all of those things.
But again, this isn't about, airport, you have to make a stand and say, this is what we are, and we respect the roots, and we are getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and we respect the tradition. Or you just say, it doesn't matter what happened 5 years ago, 10 years ago, nothing matters. It is completely irrelevant. It's what can we do that we think will make us the most money in the near term. And I can't for the life of me see how where your headquarters are for a nameless, faceless conference. And by the way, I can't think of a person in a big position in sports that people would know less than the name of the commissioner of the league that their favorite team. It doesn't matter. Nobody cares. The only people
I think the commissioner of the ACC currently has a very exotic name, like Jim Phillips. I think it's like there's only 175 of those in any town in America, right?
Right. So that's my case. Do you generally agree with me? Would you like to just take the contrary view?
No.
For the sake of argument, or what?
I tend to agree with you, but then there's half of me that goes, if you guys want to leave, go ahead, fuck you. But I can't do that, and that's not a sustainable view. And the people who are much more mature and studied about this thing obviously when ACC was set up here, it was back when there was a good old boys network run by mostly white guys who were into textiles and insurance and stuff, who thought it was a good idea for the ACC to be here, and they made sure that happened. And now, what this city and this region has really lacked, I think Greensboro in particular, is an identity. Charlotte's got an identity, Raleigh's got an identity, and Greensboro has always struggled. So that's always been a thing. So if we go to the ACC, to the movers and shakers, and we go, you need to be here because we are the city that blanks. You can't really say that, right? You can't really say this is, but I think you're right. We're not as pitiful as some people would like to think. We don't need to underdog ourselves. That we have a lot of amenities that anybody else has, and I would love for the guys to stay. The ACC Hall of Fame, as you point out, is right here, and all of those things have been here for a long time.
Yeah, what are you going to get? 2 guys in a truck and move it to Charlotte? I guess you will. That's what they would do. But inside your argument is this, that a city of the size of Greensboro, not a mega market, is perfect for something. Shut up. Who's listening? I just talking about it, and Siri's butting in on this. Shut up.
Shut up, Siri.
Shut up,
Stay
Siri.
to yours. Go shopping for some hand creams.
Yeah.
You were talking about a city the size of Greensboro.
A city the size of Greensboro, where there aren't as many competing interests for your attention. They take it seriously here.
Oh yeah.
It's Greensboro's baby. It's Greensboro's not even teenager anymore. We treat the ACC like a very important member of whatever family a city can be, and you can get swallowed up if you go to any of these other places. You can go to Washington D.C. and I'm pretty sure that they could not care less about the move, except for the real estate developer who would sell them the building or the land to build the headquarters or anything like that. Same with New York. You get swallowed up if you move it to New York. The toughest candidate, of course, is Charlotte, because Charlotte has, they have a geographical claim that's really no worse than Greensboro's.
Exactly.
In that both cities don't have a home college in the ACC.
Right.
So they don't have, but they have all these other things going for them. But I think in the end, I think they're going to leave it here. I'm convinced of my own argument. I really am. I'm convinced of my own argument. And here's another one. There's enough turbulence going on right now in sports, in college sports, in the realignment, in the who's screwing who component of who's pairing up with who to jam who else. With teams now in conferences that you can't even name anymore. Forget the old days when you knew the name of every baseball manager or every football coach in your league. We're so far past that, it's not even. I mean, you have to be really down in the weeds to know those kinds of things. So,
right.
if you want a nice port in the storm of insanity that is the money grab of sports at the pro and college level, then leave it in Greensboro and worry about other shit. It doesn't matter where you are as long as you're doing what you want to do, and you can do what you want to do from anywhere. And you're going to force a bunch of families to have to move if they want to keep their job. It's like anything else when you say that corporate headquarters are leaving, and so they would do themselves a favor in that conference, this conference, to keep it here. And of course, as you know, my advice is worth less than the hat that you're wearing on your head right now. For those who can't see, it is a UNC hat.
Always a member of the Atlantic Coast Conference after they were a member of the Southern Conference.
Yep. So that's my speech on that. We'll see. I don't know when they're going to make it. I don't think there's a timeline on this. They can do it anytime they. I mean, that's the bad part of this. It kind of doesn't matter if they reaffirm next week that we're staying. They could say, in March of 2022, we've thought about it and we're out of here. Because I don't think that.
The irony of this is the current mayor of Greensboro, her father was a big mover and shaker during the salad days of the ACC and did just about every job in that conference for a number of years before it became this multi-billion-dollar, Goliath.
Right. So therefore, it will be officially her fault.
Well, everything is. I mean, for God's sake.
Her fault if they leave, because she will have let them leave, as if she could unilaterally stand in front of the door and do all the other kinds of things. Because whenever something bad happens on a Democrat's tenure, it is their fault.
And nothing that happened before even matters.
It doesn't matter before.
We talked about it a little bit. You talked about it on your social media, the death of Ed Asner at the age of 91, created one of television's most enduring and endearing characters in Lou Grant, from what I feel is the best ensemble cast in the history of television, the Mary Tyler Moore Show, dying at the age of 91. They note in this New York Times article, in this obituary, there was a generation of people that have no idea about the Mary Tyler Moore Show, and he was known for the movie Up, which I think is completely true. And for you and
but
me,
you know what?
Hey,
guess what? That's a testament
to
the fact that the guy didn't rest on his laurels from work that he did when he was in his 40s or early 50s, and he kept at it. I mean, what I read about him was that, look, he said, I never turned down a job. Yeah. There aren't enough jobs for actors, and I never turned one down. So, okay, good for him. Now, if you really want to ruin any thoughts you have about Ed Asner, I dare you, and don't do it now, do it later, because it's just so absurd. If you look at the Daily Mail article about it, every comment is about what a commie, lefty, American hating piece of shit Ed Asner was.
And you know who would love that?
Then there's the proverbial never heard of him.
You know,
all just, it's like the worst.
You know who would love? You know, would really love all of the commie shit. He would love that. He would love the fact that they're trying to tar him with being a far left, falling off the world communist. He would love.
Well, he actually kind of was, but that's okay. This is America. You can be whatever you want. I mean, he was the head of the union a couple of times. He got some people pissed off, but you know what? That's okay.
Well, he got in Charlton.
You get to do that.
He got in Charlton Heston's face a few times, which I appreciate certainly over the years. But yes,
and I asked a question. You saw the question that I asked, and I think he is the only person who starred as the same character with the same name in two different shows. One a comedy, one a drama.
That's right.
And we nobody could, the closest that anyone could get, of course, was me, because naturally I'm brilliant, and it doesn't count. It doesn't stand up to what Lou Grant was on Mary Tyler Moore and then the Lou Grant Show. Mm-hmm. But Trapper John, a character played by Wayne Rogers on MASH, and then Trapper John MD, not played by Wayne Rogers.
Purnell Roberts, I believe, was the guy who portrayed him on the hour-long drama.
Well, no, his real name was Adam Cartwright, but okay.
His stage name was Purnell Roberts.
Exactly. But there's just no, and now if you want to back off from the from that need to have the exact Ed Asner, Lou Grant thing, you know, if you say, well, Andy Griffith, great comedic actor and great dramatic actor, Matlock, okay, I'll give you that one. But you know, he couldn't be, you know, Sheriff Andy Taylor as a serious character. It wouldn't have made any sense. Nobody would have bought it. Okay, mm-hmm. Nobody would have bought it. And maybe that's a testament to just how well the character was written, even within the comic world of the Mary Tyler Moore Show, that you knew it was a comedy, but you knew that Lou Grant had a soul, that he was a serious newsman, right. And they saw that. And the Lou Grant Show, I think, was on the next season, 1978, after Mary Tyler Moore ended in 77. So they knew they had a real thing there, and it worked well. So he goes down as one of the giants. I mean, look, he's the Babe Ruth of Emmys for males. He's won the most Emmys
now that you say
as a male ever.
Now that you say that, in terms of characters that are created in television history, obviously it's Lou Grant and Archie Bunker and Ralph Cramden, and I think some people have put Michael Scott from The Office kind of in that pantheon. Do you know how many Emmy Awards that Steve Carell won? How about zero?
None.
How about zero Emmy Awards for Steve Carell?
But you know, sometimes I don't. That's not necessarily a judgment on him.
It's still
sometimes
bullshit.
Sometimes you're on a show that's so good that the show gets more credit, as if the show wasn't made up of individuals who are great at what they do. So I don't think
criminal.
That's any.
It's still absolutely criminal.
But,
no matter
you know what? That kind of gives him a shtick.
He should get I heard Paul Feig, who directed a lot of the episodes, say he should get like one of those special president's awards. It should be 5 feet tall. But you know, there was a time, I think back in the 90s, I think it was oh, was it Tim Allen or it was Ted Danson or somebody that said, just stop giving me the award because it
That
became
was Bill
embarrassing.
Cosby.
Was it
That
Cosby?
was Bill Cosby.
Please stop giving me the award. It's putting me to sleep, please.
I have something else that you can give me every day at about 3:00 in the dressing room.
I don't want the award, please. And so he said, stop giving. He would not put himself forward.
I absolutely.
And it just blows my mind. Speaking of legendary performers, Brad, may I ask what the fuck is wrong with Eric Clapton? After having many stances that are anti-vax and against all sorts of lockdowns in Great Britain, he now has a protest song against measures taken to lessen the COVID virus. It's gone far enough. Clapton sings, if you want to claim my soul, you have to come down and break down this door, in his new protest song, which is called This Has Gotta Stop. What is wrong with Slow Brain?
I have no idea. I mean, we can kind of figure it out. First of all, anybody who had the history of drug use that he does probably hasn't been thinking straight for a long time. So We'll start with that. And secondly, do we just toss him on the pile of idiots like the now we're up to three right-wing talk show hosts who are dead?
Yeah, that's true.
Because the guy down in Daytona Beach, Bernier, he died over the weekend. So that's three. Do we just put Clapton in there and say, look, if he gets it, tough shit. He's no different than every other anti-vax whack job conspiracy theorist nut brain. Because I'm more than willing to do that, because we lost it a long time ago here. I think we were trendsetters where long ago, you have to understand where they're coming from. You have to not yell at you can't make fun of it. I don't think we've been there for at least 4, 5, 6 months.
It's been a while. I tried it. I really have tried very hard.
In fact, I think right as we were getting vaccinated ourselves, which was, back in February, March, April kind of thing. I mean, I looked at mine. I think I got mine, February, and then my last one was the beginning of March. At that point, and then right after I got mine, you got yours before me. That was when it started to really open up and widen out for everybody to be able to get it. At that point, no excuses. You have no excuses. And at that point, the propaganda and the lying and the undermining went into full gear. And I guess they've got a celebrity now to be their front man. Eric Clapton. Slow hand is now slow brain.
Slow brain. There's no doubt about it.
Slow brain.
You've been reading about the ivermectin and the gel form of this that people have actually been mixing with toast and eating on toast.
Stop. What? Wait. Yes. It's now not. You don't have avocado toast. You have horseworm. Ivermectin toast. Is that what
they mix it with? Some sort of marmalade or some sort of strawberry jam, because it tastes pretty nasty in and of itself. Yeah. And then you spread it on toast, and that's how some people have been eating it, and that's how some people have been calling poison control. And it's been absolutely insane, and it's going on in a lot of I say it, southern states, deep southern states that are happening.
When they call up and say, I just had orange marmalade mixed with ivermectin, and it's making me sick, are they complaining about the orange marmalade poisoning them? Is that what they're doing?
Well, they're doing on Reddit threads and even Reddit is kind of trying to police this a little bit. They're trying to make it seem like they're not giving a medication that was an equine medication to human beings. They will say, my horse weighs approximately 210 pounds. How much should I give it?
Oh, it's one of those miniature horses.
Right. That's the story there for
so their argument is it's not that the stuff is bad. It's just that if you take a horse size dose of it, and a horse may weigh 1,200 pounds.
Yes.
That's way too much for you. So
it's all just as dangerous to take really any dose of it, and you shouldn't be taking stuff that was meant for animals, and there is no evidence that this is effective in any way against COVID.
there's like 100 ways to make fun of this. So let's start. So let me get this straight. You have not been willing to take the coronavirus vaccines as produced by 3 major drug companies in the United States. You're not, because it wasn't FDA approved, but you're willing to take something else which is not FDA approved also, and it's for horses. I don't want to know you. You're not related to me. I never want to speak to you again. You're too stupid to be in my world. You're too inconsistent. You're too full of it. I can't stand you. I don't like you. And by the way, now the first of the vaccines is FDA approved all the way through Pfizer. So you now even have less of a lame excuse, which you had as a lame excuse to not be taking the real vaccine, and you're continuing to take a vaccine that is not only not approved by the FDA, even under experimental auspices like the coronavirus vaccine was for the last 7 months, and with results in from hundreds of millions, billions of people now. We've got a pretty good trial working here, buddy, and you still don't want to take that, but you're willing to go with horse shit, okay, horseworm stuff, whatever it is, and we'll put it on toast. Have they made frozen pops out of it yet? I mean, I guess are they doing it into brownies yet? Like marijuana. I mean, what are they doing with it?
Well, as you know, when the FDA approved it, then all of a sudden the goalposts got moved again. But, look at all the stuff the FDA has approved over the years. It turned out to be bad, blah, 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 blah. So the goalposts always get moved one way or the other. And then these mythical people that have gotten sick and died from the vaccine. I mean, that continues to be brought up.
Right, but here's the interesting thing: the rules and the way they test and their hesitancy to approve drugs, and they're not perfect. They do make mistakes. There was the Vioxx thing about 10 years ago with that drug that some people died. But I do believe that the current rules of conservatism in making sure that there are several levels of trials that are given. And placebo, it goes back to the thalidomide story of the early 1960s, where this drug was given to pregnant women, and next thing you know, you have babies coming out with little flippers and shit, and it was horrible. It was horrible. Mm-hmm. And I think that's when the FDA really got religion, and so you see the testing. But I think what's happened is now the FDA's approved the 5. They went too fast. At first, they were going too slow, and now they're too fast. We're looking for Goldilocks here. Not too hot, not too cold, just about right.
Again, we're just moving the goalposts everywhere, right? Everything. You're going too fast. You're going too slow. You got it approved. You didn't get it approved. You got it approved.
Wait. If you're going to move the goalposts, would you move them in one direction? Quit moving back and forth. Too fast, too slow. Too fast, too slow.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And I've seen a fair number of people who are nurses who continue to rail against it. Obviously, the grand majority of people who are involved in healthcare, doctors and nurses and so on, are pro-vaccine, but there are a few out there.
Guess what? No, that's not a few. It's way too many.
It's
not a few. It isn't like there are, 99%, and it's not like that at all. It's way lower than that in too many places. And it's a disgrace. It's an embarrassment. It's shameful. It's really shameful. And we got to mandate this sucker. We got to just say everybody's got to get vaccinated.
It is more and more.
I don't know what's left.
It is more and more, and people can claim that they're being screwed out of a job or a career or whatever because of this. But I think mandating is the only way to go. Meanwhile, in Florida, these monoclonal antibody sites are popping up everywhere. So according to Governor DeSantis, whose popularity is not what it used to be, Brad, you're not supposed to get the vaccine and prevent it, but when you get sick, immediately go to one of these things and get in the drive-in line and go ahead and take several vaccinations in order to get yourself cured from this monoclonal antibody treatment. By the way, he may or may not, definitely does have a financial interest in this doing very well.
of course, the responsible thing, comedy here, the responsible thing for a governor of Florida to do would be to say, yes, we have this treatment if you get it, but the real goal is you shouldn't want to get it, and you should get vaccinated, and you must get vaccinated, and all state workers in Florida, everyone that's under my control must be vaccinated, and we want to set an example, and local school districts should be able to decide about the safety of students, and it shouldn't have to go to court and have my ass get smacked down like it did late last week, where they ruled against him, thank goodness, and allowed school districts in various counties in Florida to make the rules. But what that's like, it's like, all right, don't wear your seatbelt, but we have this fantastic way. We have these fantastic new wheelchairs that are going to be great after you're a quadriplegic from the car accident that made you one, that you didn't wear a seatbelt, that would have prevented you from becoming a quadriplegic. But God, this is like a NASCAR wheelchair. You can go 60 miles an hour in the wheelchair. So don't worry about wearing that seatbelt. That's a restriction of your freedom. Who are we to tell you have to wear a seatbelt? But if something happens, we got you covered. We've got Ron DeSantis nuclear powered wheelchairs, best ever, best stuff. And I mean, we're in a zone here of disinformation that is so far beyond our comprehension that you just wonder. I mean, clearly at this point, I think there is consensus. We're going to be living with this at some level the rest of our lives, and we're going to be getting more vaccinations. They may be sooner, they may be later, and it's going to happen. Now, are we going to see, let's try to project this out, what will happen here if things are going the way we hope they're going, which is that the vaccines that we all have right now, they really are pretty effective. They're pretty good. And at some point, to be determined, a lot of us are going to get a second or third shot, second if you're Johnson & Johnson. And by the way, those people, they really should be the first ones. Every Johnson & Johnson person, if there's extra shots recommended, they should be first in line.
Yeah, you saw the piece in the New York Times about the doctors are saying that that's something that should happen immediately, even though it's not being recommended. That the Johnson & Johnson people should immediately go ahead and grab it.
Right, and then I can give you the absolute opposite of that. Also in the New York Times, written by David Leonhardt, who writes the here's what's going to happen today. His piece today is really well done, and it really does make the case that the research done over in Israel that panicked our FDA and panicked Joe Biden and got all of us thinking, shit, it's not working anymore. There's too many breakthrough cases. I got to have another vaccine. That the research and the numbers that they generated out of that particular study that have been used here are flawed. And here's the flaw, as I recall him saying this. Because the first people in Israel to get vaccinated very early on were the best educated, the highest income people who jumped in first. Mm-hmm. They were the kind of people that would rock and roll travel, do everything, do all the kinds of things that really do increase your risk, whether you're certainly if you're not vaccinated, but even for vaccinated people. So they started showing breakthrough cases, those earlier people who got the first vaccines more than people who've gotten it later. But that's not good enough for us. We got to jump in and go nuts and make everybody think that their vaccine is not working all that well. And so maybe we need to put the brakes on it. Maybe most of us really don't need a second vaccine. However, Britt, I'm an elite. I'm 65, so I may get one anyway. Okay.
I'm not as young as I used to be either, right. So I'm going to go ahead.
You're not in my class, baby.
No, not there. No, I'm not there.
Right. But what's the aside from that discussion? which is if you're just really still very careful and you still mask up when it makes sense and you don't expose yourself over and over and over again in situations where it's floating around and you don't know who's been vaccinated or not, you're pretty likely not to catch it. And if you do, you're probably almost 99%, whatever, you're going to be fine. You're not going to end up in a hospital. You're not going to be on a ventilator. So for Ron fucking DeSantis to be 100 miles from what we were just talking about and be touting treatments, which wrapped within inside that argument is you don't need to get vaccinated. We can help you.
Yeah,
you're going to be fine. Don't
just the minute
worry
you start
about it.
The minute you start feeling a tickle in your throat, just go to this place and we'll treat you with about 100 shots. And I'm going to make some money off of that, but don't worry about that. That's fine. This is the best way to handle it. Or get some horse goo, mix it with Smuckers, and have some breakfast. I mean, what's the problem? I don't understand. What can you liberals not understand about that? And I think, by the way, the daily death toll in Florida from COVID is creeping into the 240 range as Fauci rips Ron DeSantis' fundraising site for selling anti-vax shirts amid the COVID crisis. Don't Fauci my Florida or something like that, various other things. Dr. Fauci has become, of course, a villain among a lot of right-wing idiots, and Ron DeSantis is trying to raise money for re-election or perhaps his presidential run. Unfortunately, those prospects are not looking that great. His re-election prospects in Florida and his chances of running for president, not as hot as they once were, Brad, as 240 plus people die each day from COVID in Florida. Strangely enough, oddly enough.
Oh. Do I get to give you out and I told you so about DeSantis?
Well, it's not over
May
yet.
I?
It's not over yet, and it's not like the mainstream Republican voters have gone, no, we're moving away from the crazy. They're just saying, this crazy is not my brand today. This Greg Abbott guy looks good, or I'll stick with Donald John Trump Sr., or I'll stick with Ivanka. He could come back around again. There's no question
you're pitting
about
your
that.
hope on that, and I'm saying that he's such a flawed piece of shit that even the Republicans might not want.
If he's dead in the water and it's over and his body is floating in the Gulf, do you think I'm shedding any tears? Do you think in any way, shape, or form I'm going to shed?
No, I didn't
one
say
tear?
it's not about shedding tears.
I will. If it's over for him, I'll be the happiest dude you ever saw. Meanwhile, in Afghanistan's evacuation slow as the U.S. shifts to military withdrawal in Afghanistan, there were some successful strikes against ISIS-K targets in Afghanistan. Of course, none of that matters because it will be reported on Fox News that Joe Biden's dithering and his awfulness and his lack of planning cost American servicemen and women their lives. None of this matters to those folks. And of course, the story is being portrayed as a massive disaster from the Biden administration, although things, it seems, for some folks have gotten better in Afghanistan as far as getting out. It is a dreadful situation nonetheless, Brad.
Yeah, it is. And the only question is, will time heal all wounds, or will the long tail of I'll just pick a word of Benghazi-like flypaper be stuck to Joe Biden and really come back at him? Here's the nugget that really tells you what they're all about here on Fox and the usual suspects as they've tried to pretend to report this story with any degree of honesty the last couple of weeks. Sunday night, CNN, which had been live, for about 48 hours straight, nonstop, no history of comedy even Sunday night. That's how important this was. Okay, they were live with the hurricane nonstop because that's what CNN does, right? And they were live mixing in news from Afghanistan when they needed, you try to balance those two. Fox on Sunday evening, when the height of the hurricane coverage was merited, right? Because it was barreling in late Sunday afternoon into the evening overnight. And then overnight, we learned that the entire city of New Orleans was blacked out. Millions of people losing everything. On Sunday night, CNN was live all the way through, and Fox stopped at 8 o'clock in the evening to go back to the usual bashing Biden over Afghanistan programming with Mark Levin and Bongino and the usual shit. That tells you everything you need to know.
That's very much what is going on in Afghanistan. That is for sure. Now, they're trying to pin with this guy. It's just a presidency of crises. It's all he's got. He's got the Delta variant, the COVID crisis. He's got the Afghanistan crisis. Now, obviously, we have a natural disaster, and it's just this guy is just a walking disaster. That is how he is trying to be portrayed among those folks. I'm not sure if that's something that's going to stick over a period of time, though. Is it?
Well, he kind of is right now. But you know what? Anybody would be a walking disaster based on the kind of shit that's being thrown at him. And you have to ask yourself, say, as a Democratic voter who voted for Joe Biden, you can play this game in your head. If the election were held tomorrow and the same two candidates were on the ballot, knowing everything that you know, would you switch your vote from Joe Biden to Donald Trump? If the answer is yes, then it's a problem. I don't think it's much of an answer yes, because remember the game here. You know, Trump could be a fuck up for 4 years. Trump could be the worst human being to ever walk the earth for 4 years. And they looked the other way and made excuses and never asked him a hard question one time. Never, not once, over anything. Never questioned anything. And of course, here's Joe Biden, who is in all kinds of deep shit over things. And Joe Biden, when he can't avoid the questions, because sometimes he tries, but he's not successful usually, he takes the hard questions. He takes the shit. And not only that, he takes the shit from Fox. He takes the shit from now his favorite reporter, Peter Doocy. He takes it from him. And you know what? Mm-hmm. I think he handles it pretty well. He takes it. Okay. So, this, we hope, will just be a snapshot in time, and that things will get better, that the economy will continue to mend, and that the coronavirus will have peaked, because Dr. Gottlieb, who's been pretty right on a lot of the things he's predicted, his belief, at least late last week, was that we're seeing the same kind of peak now that they saw in Britain, and then it went down. Of course, as we're all experts in this now, right? We know everything about it. We know that as the number of cases peaks, the number of deaths is a lagging indicator behind that. The number of deaths don't go down immediately. And of course, as bad as it is, the number of deaths that we have right now is not even close to what it was during the last peak, because we have so many people vaccinated, and we do have a lot of people who, even if they're not vaccinated, do have some form of natural immunity because they have had it. So the pool is shrinking for the number of deaths, but far be it from us sitting up here in our beautiful air-conditioned confines to talk about that, when hospitals all over the country, and all over the country, not just in Florida, are overrun. And the rest of us just pray for our own health so that we don't have to end up in a hospital for anything aside from corona. But we don't want to be there you don't want to be near a hospital if you can avoid it under normal circumstances, but now more than ever. So does this stick to Joe Biden? Does this stick to every Democrat running for every? They're going to try to make it stick. Believe me, they're going to try. Whoever's running for county commissioner in your hometown will be responsible for the deaths in Afghanistan if they're a Democrat. Believe me.
Will there be more enthusiasm from the Republicans to investigate the intelligence failings in Afghanistan or the January 6th insurrection?
What do you think?
Which of those is going to get more? And
What kind of stupid ass question is that?
It's just a question. And by the way, the president has been called on to resign. Josh Hawley and Senator Blackburn both saying the president should resign over this debacle.
Maybe he should think about it. If they say so, that's.
The White House says it's not a day for politics amid calls for Biden's resignation after the Kabul suicide bombings. That's what Jen Psaki was saying. I would expect him to be gone by 5 o'clock today. I don't think Joe Biden.
See, but here is the difference. Here is the difference. And by the way, remember, put this one in your back pocket and hold on to it. Once you've called for Biden's resignation, what do you got left? What else do you have?
Well, Kamala Harris, and then you go after
no. But what else do you have on Biden? If you say he should resign and then he doesn't, what do you do?
Well, you just keep calling him on a series of. I'm sure he's already blown the recovery effort in Louisiana. We haven't even started it. But I'm sure he should resign because of that.
You're wrong. He's pre-blown it. Okay, they had plans already to pre.
Did he not throw the paper towels? Did he not toss the paper towels overhand like you should have, or what happened there?
Right. So 20 years ago, after September 11th, and check me on this, I don't recall Democrats demanding that George W. Bush resign.
No.
Is my memory off on that?
No, you can't. I'm sure like Michael Moore did somewhere in some editorial or some piece in the Schittsburg News, and that became every Democrat in America wanted George. Other than the fact that Democrats were 90% behind George W. Bush. They supported the president. Everybody in Congress gave him their full support. Everything else, but yes, I'm sure it's there was one guy that stood up in the Levittown News and said he should resign.
Right, but here's the point. That's why. The Democrats are so back on their heels on so much because they are fighting politically a political terrorist organization. The Republicans are a political terrorist organization, and they will do whatever it takes to achieve power. And not only that, you can't even say, well, short of violence, because that's off the table. They've already tried that on January 6th. They've already done violence. But that recall of Gavin Newsom in California,
it's a big deal.
is just political malpractice by a party. Because remember, we talk about it here in North Carolina with gerrymandering, where we'll say, well, the Democrats get more votes. This happens in Wisconsin also, I think in Pennsylvania, where the Democrats will get more total votes every 2 years in congressional elections because of gerrymandering. The Republicans will get 60% of the seats. The Democrats will have 40% of them over and over and over again. So you, in effect, have minority government. You have minority government, and that's not just at the federal level. That's at the state level. That's what goes on because of gerrymandering, because that's what they do. That's what they are. But in California, this now goes to the ultimate extreme of the possibility of them bending the spirit of the rules of fair play and accepting an election outcome in a state that re-elected Gavin Newsom 62 to 38.
Yep.
It's a heavily Democratic state. Accept it. Deal with it. Okay. So they've played this game here to where it's very possible that if the Democrats sit on their hands and don't show up or don't send in their mail-in ballots or whatever in California, and Newsom doesn't get the 50% plus one that he needs of the people saying, no, I don't think he should be recalled. If he doesn't get that, then one of the 46 crazy-ass Republicans, possibly very likely Larry Elder, holy shit, the worst of the worst, could become the governor. He could get 10% of the second part of the vote, because they ask you, should Gavin Newsom be tossed out of office, impeached and convicted, tossed out? And then the second part is, who should replace him? And it's, the other 46 people on the ballot, the Republicans, not Gavin Newsom. He can't be part of that second vote if 50% plus one don't say, no, he shouldn't be impeached. He should stay in office. And Larry Elder is the only person of all the people who has statewide recognition because he's been on talk radio out there for all of these years. So, but with, if you divide the pie by 46, who knows? But it doesn't matter. He just needs a plurality, which means more than any of the other 46. So he could have 10%, and the next person could have 8%, and you just add it up till you get to 100% of that second vote. And that's your governor, and he'll be a Republican in a state that's so heavily Democratic that they reelected. But they don't care. This is what Republicans do. They don't give a shit. And hang on, let me just.
No, he's gonna cough for a moment. No, he's gonna be fine. This is what Larry Elder does. Larry Elder gets in the back of your throat. He just stays there. That's what Larry Elder does.
Yeah, it's a little tickle. But here's the worst part of this. That could be just the end of the world. If Larry Elder becomes the governor in a few months, and Dianne Feinstein, who is 87 years old and has already been talking about, maybe I'm not going to serve out my whole term. If she steps down and Larry Elder, the Republican governor, is left to appoint the replacement for her, well, guess what happens to the 50+1 Democratic majority in the Senate right now? It disappears, and the Republicans become the majority again, and Mitch McConnell becomes the majority leader of the Senate. So there's a lot at stake out there in California. It isn't just Gavin Newsom. It's way, way more than that. And there'll be an election in 2022, a regular election for the seat of governor again. It's not like Larry Elder gets a 4-year term if he slides in here after they've tossed out Gavin Newsom in a recall. But it's still pretty bad. It's still pretty terrible. And, California is, it's the state with the easiest rules on how to recall a governor. And they try it all the time. It never works, except when it does. It worked one time, 20 years ago, Gray Davis, and you got Arnold Schwarzenegger as your governor, which, by the way, doesn't sound too bad right now compared to the group of people that are there at this moment.
Oh, this would be way worse than that for sure. Larry Elder would be a nightmare.
Schwarzenegger was not. Yeah. Schwarzenegger didn't do damage to. It's not even close. But apparently, throughout the entire 20th century, every governor of California, there's been talk of impeaching them, but it's difficult to do in terms of getting the signatures. I mean, do you know what happened here on how fucked up this is? They knew they couldn't get enough signatures,
right?
Because it was hard to get signatures, a year ago because of COVID, and you couldn't stand out in front of a grocery store. You couldn't be anywhere to get signatures. So they went to a judge, and they said, "Judge, we need more time to get the signatures." And the judge said, "Well, okay, these are special circumstances." And he gave him another 4 months, and it was during that 4-month period that Gavin Newsom ate that famous dinner with those famous people at that famous restaurant in Napa Valley called the French Laundry, which people took pictures of. And suddenly Gavin Newsom was Saddam Hussein and super hypocrite of the century for eating in a room with people without a mask on back then. So at that point, they didn't have any problems getting more signatures. It was time to get rid of the guy. So here we go. That's what's at stake, and that's what they do, and that's how they do it. And it just takes different forms across the country. But the California thing, it's a big deal. It is a big, big deal. If a Republican governor got control of the biggest state for whatever, and it's not like he changes the laws, but it's just the idea.
No, but he's a pro-Trump guy. Larry Elder would be a big pro-Trump. This would be a big win. This would be portrayed as a big win for Donald Trump. There's no question about it.
Yeah. One more thing here. And I'm going to say it twice so you get it. Sirhan, Sirhan.
You want him out.
Okay, so the parole board out there makes this recommendation that Sirhan should get his freedom after being in jail for 50 some years for the murder of Robert F. Kennedy in 1968. And the decision will be ultimately made not by the parole board, because I think there's another hearing for that, for the full parole board. I think there's just two people, and then you have a full hearing. And if they say, yeah, he served his time, he's remorseful about all the things that you take somebody out of prison for, who's gotten a life sentence. He originally had a death sentence, but California changed its rules, and Ted Kennedy and Ethel Kennedy said, don't execute him, just keep him in jail for life. So his sentence got changed, so he's in jail for life. So here he is. I think he's 77 years old now, something like that. And they've had like 15 of these hearings over the years. That always pops up in the news, right? Every couple of years, you'd say, Sirhan, no, back to prison. But the interesting part of the story, for me, at least, there's a couple things. Number one, it will be whoever is the governor at the time the parole board makes its full decision on whether Sirhan will walk. Now, I don't know. I haven't seen whether this is a question that is thrown at Larry Elder, the leading Republican, or Gavin Newsom himself, the incumbent, over what would you do if the full parole board recommends, let the guy out, he's old, he served his time, blah, 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 blah. I would assume that both of them would say, no way, Jose, keep him in there. I certainly hope that Gavin Newsom is smart enough to know, even as the flaming liberal that he is, even as Los Angeles has a flaming liberal prosecutor who doesn't even show up at the parole hearings, claiming that he's not really part of the process now because it happened. So the local prosecutors don't recommend sentences. That's not their job. Okay. Even with that, the Gavin Newsom would never, ever even put out a hint that he would be on the side of releasing Sirhan.
I would hope so.
So that's part one. But part two is the division among the 9 surviving Kennedy kids, as opposed to Kennedy cousin Michael Skakel. Boy, did that annoy me when they used that phrase.
Every time.
He was always Kennedy cousin. But these are the actual. Robert Kennedy had 11 children. 2 of them are deceased. 9 survive. And like a good 6-3 Supreme Court ruling, it's 6-3 in favor of keeping him in jail. It's 6-3. And of course, you know who the leader is.
Robert Jr.
Let him out. Right. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Right. It's not enough to be against the vaccinations. It's not enough to be that nut.
Well, now
to be pro parole for the guy who murdered your father. And
to be fair, Robert Francis Kennedy Jr. was anti-vax when anti-vax wasn't cool. He's been doing it for a long time.
Right. Let's be fair to him.
Yes.
Let's not impugn his
integrity in any way, shape, or form.
Right. So he's on the side, and one of the other daughters is, I think, Kathleen Kennedy Townsend is agnostic. So it's really 6-2.5. I don't think she's speaking. I don't think you can sit on the fence on this one. I think you're going to have to take a stand.
And
I don't think Ethel Kennedy, who's by the way still alive, I don't think she's said anything specifically publicly about it. But here's one of the problems that would occur, I think, very quickly if he got out of prison. Because remember, you don't remember, his history is very simple. He's from a Palestinian family that was born in what became Israel when the Palestinians got tossed and Israel became Israel. He was born in 1944. Israel formed in 1948. His family emigrates to America, Southern California. And 20 years after he gets here, he is Sirhan, and he kills Robert F. Kennedy for various reasons. But the fear is that he would be put on an airplane in about 2 seconds and sent back over to the Middle East, where he would be a hero. They would raise him up as a hero.
It's true.
Is that just paranoia? Is there any truth to that? Would that actually happen? He's an American. But he did kill Robert F. Kennedy. Oh, and don't forget, there is a Robert F. Kennedy assassination truther movement that says that Sirhan really didn't shoot him, that it was somebody else. Because there's
was that somebody else? Was that Hillary? Is that another one that Hillary killed?
No. There's another guy. I can't remember his name. He was up there on the podium and he got zinged by a bullet. And he's claiming the direction of the bullets make it impossible for Sirhan to
another
have shot
magic
him.
bullet theory.
Right,
Jesus.
right. So there's some of that's been working. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is big on that. The most vocal person that I've seen is Joe Kennedy, who is the oldest.
God.
He's the oldest of the surviving kids. He's saying, "No way, Jose. Don't let this mofo out."
All right, that's our time for today.
That's it.
That's all the Sirhan time we have for today. Watch your back for stray bullets. We'll be back here on Tuesday.
See ya.